I have free will.
And what would you do with that free will?
Shit your pants.
Who shit my pants? Are you a comedy guy?
I
Do
would
you
shit.
watch?
I would shit your pants.
Do you watch Kill Tony? Are you a comedy guy?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit comedy guy, or a little bit you watch Kill Tony?
A little bit of comedy guy. Not
Right.
so much of him specifically.
You don't know? Well, it's a show on YouTube that's from Tony Hinchcliffe. It's been going on for like 10 years or whatever, and they have.
Look, I don't speak that boomer language. Okay.
Definitely not boomer. It's like they have successful comedians come on a panel, and the whole podcast is completely just random people off the street can sign up, and if they want to be a comedian, they'll come up and they'll do 1 minute, and then the professional comedians, depending on how well they do, roast them or give them advice or even set them up with jobs and stuff like that. It's pretty good. I think an obvious thing would be to just cover the fact that we don't have the U.S. Special Forces deck yet. They did say next week. They said they're going to talk about it next week.
True. They got 3 hours.
Yeah. No, you know what? No, this is a genuine topic. All right. And maybe I'm too much of a bitch for thinking this way, but it's really fucking annoying being massive fans of these games.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a massive fan, you know they're about to do something. You know they're about to talk about something, which they did last week. They always post stuff on Fridays on the Patreon. They were clearly going to talk about the U.S. Special Forces deck or spec and reveal it on Friday. And then they just said nothing and didn't the whole day. Said it was so clear that the whole community, the whole like actual genuinely like in the know community was on the Discord. We were talking about it. It's like, when they're going to post, when they're going to post, constantly checking Patreon, constantly checking their Steam page. Nothing happens.
Yeah, would have been good to have the consistency a little bit, you know?
Just be like, hey, we were going to say something today, but not yet. Or, hey, we usually say something on Fridays, but not yet.
Not today.
Not today. They did talk about the AC-130, which we already talked a bit about, though. So if you guys listening would like to go check out some news on the AC-130, go check out the Steel Ball Leica Patreon for $1 a month, and you'll go see some stuff about the AC-130. You can go check that out, along with everything else that they've discussed over there. I don't know. I don't like that. That's the thing. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't just say like, hey, we're not going to post today. Sorry, something happened. But the reason why I really want to bring this up is because it got my wheels spinning. That, like, when you think about it, what is the reasoning for them to just not talk about it yet? If they clearly were ready to talk about it, why wouldn't they talk about it yet? And I mean, if the video is not quite there, they would have had the video ahead of time, unless somebody really screwed up, or we had to make a last second change or something like that. Sure, that can happen. But I think it's more likely that, and we'll find out this week apparently if they do end up talking about it, I think it's more likely that they were going to announce something significant that was time-based or, time-sensitive, that ended up they weren't ready yet. If I want to be like a glass half full kind of guy, we'll do glass half empty. If I want to be glass half empty, the game's delayed. it's not ready yet. We can't talk about it yet. Something significant happened. They lost a license to something. There's something wrong with one of the developers, something like that. That's glass half empty kind of stuff. And be like, all right, you know what? We need to wait another couple of months. So we're just going to be silent for a month like they used to do. I mean, for like 3 fucking years, just like say nothing. There's been several times when they'll be like, okay, see you next week, and then don't say anything for 2 months. And so there's been stuff like that, but I think we're a little too close to whatever they want to do in June for that. Hopefully they are.
It could also be, they want to get it right or something, but having a message would be nice.
100%. It's the whole don't get it right thing. It's completely on board with that. It's just like, given the circumstances, that doesn't fit. They were just going to talk about something of which they could say, video is, I mean, bare minimum. Again, they just said it's like we were going to talk about something today, but we're not ready, and then they ended up posting it up on Saturday. So I don't know. Maybe they saw some posts from people on the Patreon, be like, okay, what the hell? And they're like, we'll give them something. And then they had the AC-130 good to go. I don't know, but glass half empty. The game's delayed again. Glass half full. they were going to announce another test, which could have been like even sooner than like a month away or whatever. Maybe they'll say like the game's going to be available tomorrow or right now or something like a time sensitive thing. Like they do a test and just like, oh, massive bug, we need to delay, wait on that kind of a thing. So we'll see what they end up doing. But like that's the way that my brain goes. That's what makes sense for them to not talk about it, for them to wait a week. Because guess what? They were gonna do it, once a month, and guess what? Next week is. It's no longer that month. They definitely went over. So it's either they're really bad at scheduling, or they're in some kind of other dimension, or something happened and they had to push it. So depends on what that thing is. And going into April now, next month. That's 2 months. Technically, it can be 3 months if you want to include the entire month of June for the release. But if they wanted to do like a monthly thing, they've got
I wonder
that.
what.
You
Let me see. Let me just go to the Steam page just to make sure.
Yeah,
there's anything that was released like just now or whatever.
So that would be that would be funny if they ended up doing that. Actually, I could pull it up real quick too. Let me see. Where's that Patreon at?
No, February 28th. Last thing on Steam.
You're on their Patreon.
I mean, so the official release date is June, but there's no specific date on it yet. I would say they'll probably push it for late June just to give them more time.
Yeah. No, the last thing here was the AC-130.
Yeah.
Which there's a couple of different versions of the AC-130 that they're going to be adding, by the way. So you guys should go check it out on the Steel Ball Like a Patreon. What was I going to say? Shoot, what was I just talking about? Oh, right. So in terms of like, publicity on the game or whatever they're going to end up doing, even though it's, you pretty much got the RTS community by the balls already. Broken Arrow people.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whether it be Slytherin or who am I kidding? They're not listening to this. They already got the community by the balls. They don't need to do anything else other than just tell the content creators, aka us sleazebags, when we can play the game, and then we'll do their job for them of just getting the word out there. It's 3 months, so we've still got the U.S. Special Forces, which hopefully will be next week, and then what are they going to do the month of April? They've got that last spec that they haven't talked about for Russia yet. And then they got May and June. So there's 2 more major releases, but they can turn it into weekly if they wanted to in terms of like what releases they want to do. It just seemed like they were going the monthly route. So that made sense as they lead up to the full release. But one of the major things, unless you got something, I was going to move on, unless you got something to add to that. Like, what do you think they're actually going to talk about for the month of April? Do you even think that there'd be a test that soon? Do you think they're even going to try to do it? Do you even know the last thing that they said? Do you know the last thing that they said regarding the test on the Patreon? Remember from the striker?
Oh man, I don't remember that one actually.
So they said that they don't want to make the team worried. They don't want to stress the team out more and have them have a deadline for a test ahead of full release. They want them to stay focused on full release.
Yeah, I mean, what I know is that there won't be any more betas unless they do like a really closed one just to test a few things, but.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I was referring to. So they don't want to, but that's still a stupid idea. It's still, with all the connection issues, one of the most significant things that we were testing with those was the stress on the servers. You don't get that unless you do those tests.
I wonder if they kept the entire system from the last beta, because that worked pretty well near the after 3-4 days.
It did, but there's always regression. It could be something wrong with one of the units that's causing a lot of problems. It could be something wrong with, hell, they want to fucking fully release it. It could be something wrong with the scenario editor. There's lots of things that go wrong, which is why you test it. And if it's a stress related or if it's a concurrent player related thing, then you want to make sure you bring in a sufficient amount of people to properly test that stuff. So
that's fair.
I'm hanging on to hope that they basically just don't want to hear people bitching about when the test is going to be, and then perhaps
then just release one.
Yeah, if they spring it on people, then maybe it'll be like more of a gradual increase in the concurrency of the players instead of just everybody waiting for that second for it to go live, and then you immediately get hundreds of thousands of people. So BSG have been doing that now for years with Tarkov. Because they actually don't tell people the patch is actually live and able to download for like 15-20 minutes past, sometimes more. Sometimes it's hours past when it's actually available to be downloaded, because you need to give them some time to accumulate all that stuff. But anyway, we'll see what's going on with that. Apparently, we're gonna hear from we'll hear about the U.S. Special Forces deck or spec. I keep saying deck. Too used to the war game stuff. Spec tomorrow. But speaking of specs, have you seen Broken Arrow Armory or B Armory?
Yeah.
Have you checked it out?
Yeah.
Have you built anything?
Kind of. Well, I haven't built anything new, but it's kind of fun to play around with it. That's kind of the main thing I liked about these games. Just jump into the armory. I got it open right now.
Yeah, same.
No, it's quite fun that this actually exists. Even calculators and maps. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know if they're messing around with the maps yet. There's some stuff coming with the maps. That Reactor's
it's
working
pretty good
on.
that this is already there.
Yeah, this is gonna be super handy.
There's a lot of maps actually, if you think about it.
So I don't know if the older maps are coming back, like
Right.
Baltisk.
For the full release, you mean?
Yeah, it's possible they do because didn't they turn one of the
That kind of
maps
was like
into
a
something
test
else?
one.
Yeah. I don't know. What was it? There's Parnu. Where's Parnu?
Oh, that's a good point.
So maybe
Maybe they
Baltisk
just
is
didn't
coming
update it
back.
on this website.
Yeah, maybe Baltisk is coming back. Was it that one?
Yeah.
Was it just Baltisk that was? Frontiers.
They might also this might be interesting. They might also keep some maps just for the campaign to give it some unique
perhaps
aspect, you know?
Yeah, perhaps.
They might do that.
Was Frontiers
Frontiers was in the game, I think, yeah.
for the second one? For the second test?
Yeah, it was. For this most recent test, yeah, absolutely. I remember playing on that highway.
Was
for sure it wasn't there.
Was Chernihovsk's the one at the top
Let
right?
me see, Chernihovsk. Ooh, that one. That might be the beta before.
I don't think that was in the second one.
Yeah, no, that wasn't in this most recent one. This was definitely from the one before, yeah. Because I remember this one from only the one before that one. For sure, yeah. Chernihovsk was not in there. So
yeah,
that's also good. You know, they're testing some groups of maps for each beta, but yeah, as I said, they might also limit a couple of them to the campaign. I think that would actually be a good idea.
I don't remember if they said they were gonna have a lot of maps or not. I'm also looking at like how many spawns. Oh, this is something that we can discuss here. Obviously, Wargame, you could take over a spawn point based off of whether your units had that or not. Do you think they should or shouldn't have that in this game?
I don't think you should be able to take over a spawn and then spawn your units in there, but maybe you can block a spawn if you've occupied, like a conquest point, if you've occupied an area for, let's say, 3 minutes straight, or like 5 minutes, maybe? But I don't know, it's kind of a tricky one, right? Like, you don't want to promote people to just bum rush the spawn and, like, just block it, and, you know, that just kind of ruins the mood, I think. But I mean, we kind of have it now. Like when you push for one of the spawns and you take over the area, they can spawn units in there, or they just immediately die anyways.
Yeah.
But maybe it should be blocked, or you get like a new spawn somewhere else. That could be cool.
It's just a little weird that it's because you're saying that you shouldn't be able to rush for spawns, but
yeah,
we do get units back. So it's not like it wouldn't be like Wargame from before where it's like, oh, I called out my Raptor, but they spawn camped it. We didn't realize it, so now I lost my Raptor the entire game. No, you lose if you do end up losing a plane or you lose some infantry units or whatever. It's only a matter of time, until you get it back. And when you do call it out, you're gonna be full of ammunition that can also then be called out again quickly. So it's much, much, much more difficult to lock down a spawn in this case, because especially with the maps the size that they are, you're so far away from. If you're the person that's trying to lock down the spawn, it's so much more difficult for you to do that. Not to mention they have a magical portal that burps out tanks and APCs and stuff like that, and you've only got so much ammunition, even if you're sitting on a supply pile. you've only got so much reload time, stuff like that. But I think it would be my War Thunder brain was activated yesterday. We were playing Star Citizen, and somebody was asking, somebody in the org was asking, like, how am I so smooth with my ship movements when I'm using mouse and keyboard? I'm like, did you ever play War Thunder? And they're like, yeah, a little
Oh
bit.
yeah.
And I'm just like, I guess not enough. I've played thousands of hours of War Thunder and helicopters and planes and things like that. I'm just used to controlling vehicles like that with a mouse
Yeah.
and keyboard. I'm just used to it.
Same.
And my brain was activated thinking about it, but because they asked like, how much do I play these days? And I'm like, I haven't played at all this year, I don't think, because I despise the way that ground warfare works. With it being, if you respawn in that game, you just plop into the middle of a field, and there could easily just be somebody sitting there waiting for you. It's the exact same situation,
That is true.
and it's
I think it's also
insane.
hard to really push for the spawns in general, though, unless you just completely,
Oh, it is. It's worth it though. If it's
yeah,
because what do we have to end games right now? It's just if you take every single point.
just waiting. Yeah,
If you take every single point, that's one thing. But you know, I think it could be adding a lot to the game if there is something else to worry about, because it's freaking difficult to do that. If people actually properly play the game and they actually put their units out, they know what's going on. It's extremely difficult to take every single point.
that is true.
It just is. It very rarely happens.
I get why they made it. I mean, they might still tune this, right? But so I get why just controlling 60% or 6 out of 10 of the conquest points doesn't like make you win in like 10 minutes, 50 minutes, like in Wargame or other RTS with like a ticking conquest. There is like, three what you call it? What were they called again? 3 zones or 3 segments of a match. Like if you control a lot in
phases.
point or phases. If you control a lot in phase 1, you get some points. In phase 2, you can win the game if you control everything. So it does make it possible to do a comeback, even if you just hold one zone at the first phase, if you just get rushed. But I think you need to either have the entire map to be able to win really, really quickly, or it's just going to take until the end of the timer anyways. So I think there maybe the gap is a bit too much. So maybe actually adding like capturing the spawn could be a thing, but I would also expect a lot of pushback from a lot of people, because I also wouldn't want the focus to shift from like the strategic objective of, let's say, the map that you're actually fighting on, instead of the spawns where your units just spawn out of.
Yeah.
But it's a bit difficult, yeah. Maybe just balancing how the point system works to make people push the zones more, but also make them worth a bit more, so that you can have like tiebreakers in the middle of the game or something.
Right. I think there's still room for that though.
Yeah,
and to be clear,
I wouldn't say it's bad to have a capturable spawn. I think it needs to be subtle, though.
Going off of that, that would actually be significantly beneficial, because the spawn is so much further away than most of the active points. It could add an extra layer of difficulty to it, but also it's kind of weird that with those phases, you could literally win every single. You could capture every single point in the map apart from one, and still be losing at the beginning of phase 3, because that you could have lost a significant amount of units to do that. And congratulations, those circles are blue for you. Congrats, but you have significantly less units based off of where they are. It's actually decreasing the amount of points that you have coming in. And now that it's hit phase 3, here's the enemy team. This is the whole floating points thing. Here's the enemy team able to call in practically their entire decks at once, completely swamp you, and there is nothing that you will be able to do about it. Not to mention, all they need to do is capture, what would that be? 3 or 4 of those points. Because remember, with the new phase, you would have to, it would be, what's the word? It's it's even again. So then if you capture a point, that's a bonus for you. And then you capture another point, that's another bonus. Then you capture another point, that's a +3 for you guys. Actually, I actually forget if it's 1 point will get you a +3. It's possible that just capturing 1 point will get you a +3 because you have one captured in that phase. So then assuming you're getting kills from that. Basically, to cut to the chase with this small segment here, this small point here, you need to do significantly less in phase 3 to get significantly more because of the increase that you have. Whereas if you allow somebody to capture the entire map, and then it like maybe turns into a separate thing where it's just like, okay, now they only have their spawn left. That makes more sense than just having to have 1 point. I think that might fit a bit better. It just might. And then something else that I was thinking about the other day too is it almost makes me think that the systems that are in those other games, the Eugene games with like the front lines and stuff, would make more sense. But then we've got all those weird front lines that are secretly telling you where units are when they're not, actually when they shouldn't be doing that. So I don't know where the middle ground is. Does it do that in Warno? I don't remember.
No, Warno's like war game basically.
Okay. But you can. Oh, you know what? I wonder if it would be more interesting as like a hell let loose kind of a setup, where you don't actually get shown where the next points are, and you can't go past a certain point, but it's like still attack and defend, and it's like open to whatever. So you take a couple of points and you hold on to it for a certain amount of time, then it pushes the map that direction. If the enemy actually holds those, it's hell let loose setup. So the enemy actually holds those points for a little while, and then it pushes back. I'm curious if the scenario editor is going to be able to allow us to do something like that. That might be more along the lines of what people would find more interesting with a game like this, with the setup like this, because until people actually figure out that having all that infantry and artillery on the ground that barely shoot or barely do anything is actually losing you games, it's going to be a bit rough and it's going to be a bit slow. So maybe that helps push people around a little bit. I don't know. You said that you think that they're adapting, they're changing something with infantry.
There was a lot of
that?
there were a lot of feedback on infantry, and the main consensus was they're really fun to play with, but they're expensive for how effective they are compared to everything else. And they cost a lot of points. They bleed a lot of points while they're dead, and you're waiting for a respawn because they're so expensive. So there's a lot of suggestions about that. So let's say a unit costs 100 points, like an infantry squad. It's easy to kill it, right? If you're good at air, you have air control. That infantry is probably not going to survive long. But let's say it's 100 points, it dies. Right now, it costs the majority of those points you're just bleeding. So maybe they can reduce the amount of points that you bleed while it's respawning, or just make the availability a bit more, or make it just cheaper to really balance the infantry play. Because I noticed that a lot of people just like to use infantry for, to kind of get that rolling conflict vibe. Basically, that's it. And they did acknowledge that. So I do assume, I haven't seen anything on paper, but they will probably most likely do a big revamp of infantry. And we do know that they're gonna work on the economy, so that might also be included to give people some more wiggle room and more units on the map, but without overdoing it, because people kind of seem to like the rolling conflict small scale roster that you have on the map at all times.
Yeah, that was something we brought up. I think it was either last week or the week before, but this is a thing that I push with my teaching new players thing with this game is less units is better for you as a new player. You need a lot of units to properly set up a front line, but less units is less micro, and that's good for you because it's less for you to think about. Even if it's a single unit, that infantry unit is your holding force. That tank is your pushing force. That Patriot is your SAM, your anti-plane. The pivot in front of it is to stop the seed missiles from coming in. And, go from there. It doesn't need to be multiples of each doing that's your sniper team that's your recon, yada, yada. And that is what was the mainstay of World in Conflict, but it isn't necessarily a war. It's more of like,
Mm.
especially with the size of these maps, it feels very weird. And this is what I was saying before, where it makes more sense if you've got something to continue to fight over, where you've got these massive, massive maps, and they want you to do things on the side, but then the new players are just like, well, that's the objective over there, and then they forget. I'm looking at what's this map? I forget what it is. Kaliningrad. I'm looking at Kaliningrad. The amount of times that it was obvious that you don't have any war game players on your team, but the other team does because they're trying to cross that river and try and get into your
Yeah.
spawn. And it's just every fucking map. It just seems like that was always something somebody was trying to do on war game because of the naval abilities and stuff like that. But hey, you still got amphibious stuff here. So, um, how significant is well, I'll put this out there first. There's a lot of Warno because it seems like this space is kind of controlled. At least the louder mouths in the space, it seems like they are Warno people. So it seems like there's a lot of Warno people that are pushing for Broken Arrow to be more like Warno and less like anything else in the world. How significant is infantry in Warno?
Ooh, quite significant. I think. Well, it depends on the map, right? But I would say 60 to 70% of, well, I would say between 50 and 60% of all the units you buy will be infantry, coupled with APCs, of course. So
And
it's mainly mechanized focused, the gameplay.
and does it play a lot like Wargame with the ATGMs basically one shot things, maybe two shot?
No, there's a lot of there's been a lot of like automatic countermeasures, like tanks will fall back when they get targeted by an ATGM, they will pop smoke, that kind of stuff.
Automatically?
Yeah, there's a lot of automaticness added to it, but it's not like they will keep doing that and like go back to where you were. So they'll have like a panic, last ditch effort smoke pop, or if they get hit and stunned, they will reverse towards the friendly areas and stuff. Infantry is a big player in the game. There were times where infantry was underpowered because bombs were overpowered, and then infantry was a bit too good because bombs didn't do anything. So it kind of was like a battle between air and ground. But now it's kind of in a sweet spot where infantry combat, the time to kill isn't too fast, like in Wargame, fights will be over in 2 seconds. But they also don't last ages like in Broken Arrow, so it's kind of in the middle there. But the general kind of theme right now in Warno is infantry and mechanized seems to be the core, and everything around it is to support your infantry and vehicles, basically. But it's in my hands. I can actually open because it tells you like which unit type you're calling out the most, so that should give you kind of an idea.
Yeah,
Let me just pop it open here.
I'm just wondering, competitive nature of
Hmm.
man, whatever you want to call it.
There's
Competitive
there's a there's
nature.
definitely a big focus on infantry.
Yeah, it just seems like people that are really good at that game see this game being more popular, so they want it to be as easy for them as possible to be really good at it again. When in reality, it's like, hey, that game does it. Maybe do something else over here.
Yeah, I mean that's always good, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't need to be the same. Let me
and
see here.
my
Profile.
boat is just like vehicles and planes just do cooler shit. They
It looks
just do
cooler, yeah.
better. They just do stuff better.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, hell, I
Trying to
even
find
did
it
that back in
unless I
Wargame.
delete.
That was always my thing in Wargame, especially where on the mods. I just wanted to push tanks and APCs across the
See shit
field.
blow up.
Yeah.
Wonder if I can find this stat somewhere.
When you move infantry around in Warno, do they run or do you bring transports up around with them too? Because I remember in
Um,
Wargame
yeah.
most of the time you're running your once you get to where you're going, you're running your troops.
Yeah. You can run them around for sure. Yeah. You don't need to be you don't need to like put them back in vehicles because otherwise it takes them ages.
Yeah,
No, they can get places quite easily and quite quickly. Luckily, you know they worked on that quite a bit. They used to be very slow, but it's pretty good now actually. It's not that bad. I remember in Wargame you could sprint them across the map. In Broken Arrow, it's a bit slower, right? It's quite slow. You
for
have to
sure.
definitely put them in transports again to get them around, which kind of makes sense.
Oh no, that's definitely that would be realistic.
Yeah. Warno, it would help if you have transports nearby because otherwise it's still gonna take long. Yeah, I don't think it tells me anymore what type of unit I'm calling out the most, but mine is probably like 70% infantry.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that because it seems like a lot of the louder people are Warno people, and it's always
Yeah.
like this infantry needs to do this. This infantry, you need to do this to infantry. This infantry, that is hell. Jack's over there arguing with them about that. No, infantry are the hub of modern warfare. I'm just like, I get it, but this isn't. It's not trenches. It's like, and it's also like this is the kind of game that we're in, where we have
Yeah.
these advanced vehicles. It's not insufficient supplies and logistics to a front line in Ukraine. It's a game that, for whatever reason, I guess maybe because the war just kicked off. I don't know what the lore is behind Broken Arrow, assuming it's Russian invasion into Europe kind of deal. But for some reason, the U.S. is the only one that's there, and nobody else is yet. You've got plenty of time. You got plenty of units. Just put those. So what are you going to put up? You're going to use your fucking tanks. You're going to use your APCs. And if you got to
Some big
hold the line,
roadblocks.
yeah. And if you got to hold the line, sure, you got some infantry. And I definitely wouldn't be opposed to using more. But when it comes down to it, the actual way that the game works is you're wasting your time. The slower, the less range, the less effective the unit, the bigger waste of time it is for you to do that. It's much more efficient, literally coded into the game. Literally, it's much more efficient for you to not have a unit there at all, and then have that point value come back quicker so that you can spend it on something that can move quicker or be more efficient or be more deadly.
Yeah, the cost is definitely that might change a bit when they reduce or change the economy a bit so that you can keep some units around. But right now, yeah, it's better not to have anything, not do anything, you know? Just float the points, use it if you really need to do something. That kind of seemed to be what you needed to do. For sure. But I don't know, maybe when they make units take less points after you've purchased it, it might change a little bit. You can put some more tripwires down. You can, push multiple flanks. But yeah, right now, as the economy is built and the decks are, or the units, how they act, it's, yeah, better to float than to just buy whatever you can, Like in Wargame, if you had 100 points, you just spend it immediately, right? Because there's no
There's literally no
decline on your
reason.
income.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unless you are saving for a specific thing,
Yeah.
you have to.
Otherwise, you just buy it. You just keep it somewhere in
Yeah,
case, or you float a couple 100 points. But more than like 300-400, you're wasting time,
yeah.
or you're just weakening yourself because the enemy is still probably buying units. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting take. The more units you have on the field, the less income. It's kind of the way they've kind of built these games is a hybrid of destruction, conquest, and the economy mode we had in Wargame that no one touched.
Well, no, because it was like that in World of Conflict too.
Yeah, in World of Conflict, yeah. So it's this economy of the more units you have, the less income. It's the conquest of taking the zones, and it's the destruction value of getting units to get kicked out of their roster for like 5 minutes. So I don't know how they're gonna change it. If they change it, I'm afraid they might add more balancing issues. So they might not make any big moves there. So this might still hold true when the game is fully out, and then they might tinker
I
with some settings.
I truly don't think they care about balance. Uh,
Mm,
it's correction. They care about it. It's on their list. It's not a
yeah.
priority. I'm willing to bet it's not a priority. Otherwise there would have been some significant changes to Russia in the second test there. But hey, you haven't seen a third test, so I don't know. Who knows? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, kind of thing. It's just like, although that's not a perfect situation there. But in terms of testing, it's just like, all right, we'll change this one thing. Nope, didn't quite do that yet. But that's why they should be doing another test. If they were worried about, like, actually worried about balance, they would already say, listen, we're gonna do another test, but we just don't know yet when.
Yeah.
That's the way that I would think they would be phrasing that. On the subject of
Yeah.
what?
No, that would be a fair one. I don't know if they will pop another test, but right
Right.
now I don't see that they would, to be honest.
Yeah. On the subject of balance, though, if they go that route and they try to do more with infantry, which I don't think they will. I see everybody angry about the way that infantry works, and then Jack's already over there talking about like it's all right. My mods will fix the game. That's something he brought up. So obviously one of the first mods he's gonna make is just like infantry everywhere or whatever. Infantry significantly better. Which granted, that's fine. I'm curious how multiplayer is going to work with so many different mods out there. Obviously you can just put it in a title. But I'm wondering if you can like filter based off of mod, just like in the straight up.
Probably, yeah.
Server selection and stuff like that. That'd be cool if that's what we're seeing. Going from Wargame where we were locking people out and be like, this guy have the right mod? What version do you have in Discord? Did you update it? Did you verify? Did you mess around? Like this is like in the Discord call before we can start because it's all in houses. To literally just see it like it's almost like Arma Reforger, where it just like bop bop bop, you're good to go. You're in the tag. That'd be crazy to see for a game like this. Hell, even in like a World in Conflict, that was another thing. You had to like set up a specific kind of. Well, the servers are down now for that, but you have to like set up a special thing that not everybody can do. But with Steam the way it is nowadays, if there's just a simple go to workshop, click 2 buttons, you can or cannot. You're missing content for this server, whatever. That would be really fucking cool. But for the base game, if infantry is everywhere, they're still deadly. They are. So part of the discussion going on with whether infantry are good enough or not are the fact that you see how stupid people are, even though they're arguing to the nines that this unit needs to change, this unit over here needs to change, or infantry need to work this way, planes need to work this way. When they discuss it, it's like you're completely missing the fact that it seems like most people make an argument because they have, 2 or 3 games where they were playing scissors and a rock came down the road and beat them, that they need to make that the devs have a problem. They need to make the scissors beat the rock. When in reality, it's like you're supposed to have those hard counters so that there's gameplay to be had. There's something that there should be some, strategy to these things. So that's why you give the scissors a rocket launcher every once in a while. But it's still scissors at the end of the day. You don't go making scissors, beat rock just because people like to use scissors. It's still, you got to remember the basics at the end of the day. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you're not getting that, rock, paper, scissors. Duh. And it's a little, I was trying to write a script this week. I've been trying to write scripts like similar to this for months now, explaining the game. But I wish there was another game like rock, paper, scissors that included a fourth thing, because it's kind of 4, right? It's like if you want to call, you want to call paper infantry, and then scissors will be tanks, and then rocks will be planes. But infantry sure as shit doesn't kill planes. So it's like, so infantry and SAM missiles, that doesn't quite work either. But that's kind of like the setup that we're in the middle of anyway. When it comes down to it, it would be cool if there was a way to have infantry be everywhere, because with the size of the maps and the size that this game is when you're playing it, it would absolutely make sense for there to be infantry everywhere. I think it would make it get a little bit too messy. Sorry, go ahead. It would get too messy.
I've had some games where I've been able to like pump out a lot of infantry, but you have to really build the deck specifically to do that. Like, if you have expensive transports that they come with, or you don't have any really cheap transports, or like
it's completely doable.
Not the upgraded squad. Yeah,
it's completely doable, but then it sucks. You can't move.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's not that mobile. And if it is, like, if you do pop out of that tree line or out of the buildings and the enemy's fully armored, it's really hard to push that. So then you need to just use the infantry to hold until you get the tanks up, which is, fair and valid. Or you really go on this ATGM gameplay and you use your artillery and air afterwards.
Yep. Support teams.
I think it's still doable. I personally, I just enjoy infantry gameplay because I like the micro heaviness of it. I really like controlling soldiers and then having everything built around supporting them.
Right.
But that's just like how I like to play it. It's not because it's a better strategy.
Yeah. If the gameplay worked
Yeah,
similar to vehicles, I'd be on that route too. But they don't. They
yeah,
sit there for a while. They kind of just are even with the other infantry. You get significantly hurt, and then if you end up winning, there's going to be artillery or bombs coming at you, and they're not fast enough to get away from them. And then, not
yeah,
to
true.
mention, if you try to bring up supplies to them, you can't hide supplies in, you can't hide them in buildings. So what's the closest tree line? And then they got to get over there. They see them moving, and then you lose the ground, and it's just better to have a vehicle go up a road. They get into a fight, they smoke, they go back quickly, they rearm, they can get back quicker. It's it's some weird middle ground where it's just infantry. If they could do that jockey setup that you can do with vehicles, I'd do it too. I'd do it plenty. I'd play it plenty. I used to with Wargame. It was fine. But then, like we were mentioning last week too, if it becomes too much the other direction, then you've got a bunch of buildings with boxes shooting tracers at each other. That's the gameplay that you're looking at because they're in the buildings. So you don't actually see anything. You just see some skyscrapers shooting at each other with a red box over one and a blue box
Yeah,
over the other, or a green box over the other one. So
yeah,
it's a
that's
little
fair.
weird. It's a little weird. What were your favorite infantry units for each nation?
Ooh, Russia, the Metis ones. I like those. It was like yeah, it was like a good all-around infantry unit just to have defend an area. I think it's the Metis there. I'm looking at your screen. Where is it? Can I even see it? It might be the
Is that the
Cornets.
recon?
You know, it might have been the Cornet team there. It could have been a recon actually. I think you could adjust the Cornet team to have a Metis launcher instead.
What am I?
I would say that's probably my favorite for the
Oh,
Russians.
these
Yeah,
guys.
bottom left.
These
Yeah, yeah,
guys.
those guys. Yeah, because they had a big ass machine gun. They have AKs. They have the Metis. It was fun. Like it was a good defensive unit to have.
Can't
And then like if
smoke.
you put a manpad near them,
Yeah.
you're pretty good.
1200.
Then I think, oh man, America. I don't know. I would say, man, what would it be for America? I don't even know what I would pick for America.
I know what I'm picking, but I'm waiting.
Hmm. Ooh, what's the one? What's the door kicker one? Those were kind of fun
Oh,
to
that's
use.
where are you? This is these guys. This is like
Yeah,
Raiders.
Marine Raiders. I mean, they were just nuts. Um, yeah, they were just really good. But when they encounter armor, laws don't do shit. So
Oh,
it's
well, door
basically
kickers, yeah.
anti-infantry and that's it.
Yeah. But what were fantastic were these Maws, which is why I
Yeah,
think
they were good.
The Rangers are going to be dope.
Yeah, true.
Rangers are going to be really good.
Yeah. I mean, I just like snipers because of laser designation as well.
Right.
So
Can
Spetsnaz
anybody?
VMF are like a really good one. How about you? What's your fave?
Right. So, Russia, I would go, I
Mhm.
think SPG 9s just because they were like nobody really thought too much of them, but they would smoke anything. They would. So they could easily just like bop infantry as well as lighter vehicles and stun tanks. And knowing me, I didn't have a tank or a T-15 too far away. So those would be surprised that those would surprise a lot of people. Um and then the Bredy were good. The Motostrelki, which is also funny because there's a whole other deck called Motostrelki. These RPG 28s were pretty good. And those were really back in the day when you had to use before they added the transports in the vehicle tab. But since then, I don't think there was any other Russian infantry unit, and I mean any, that I used more than these VMF squads right here. These things are crazy. You can get 4 total with I keep messing up the caliber, 12.7. Having 2 of these stacked together annihilates anything other than a tank. And I do mean anything. Helicopters come at them, they start to move a bit slow, gone. Light vehicles, gone.
Yeah, that's true.
LVTPs, APCs, gone. And of course, any infantry squad. But if they don't rush them, if an infantry's like a blob of infantry rush them, they die. You'd stun them, you'd get a bunch of kills, but these wouldn't be able to last. You throw a APC at them, you throw a squad, no matter what it is, you throw a helicopter at it, they're going to kill it. These are fantastic. So easily, even though it's not an infantry squad, these were my most used. These were my favorite. You got to smoke, you can sprint, and you can laze. These were my favorite, infantry. But if they have to be an infantry, like have to, it would probably be the Beretti, because that's just who I had. It's just who they
these
were
were
there.
insane.
Yeah, these
These
good.
were so overpowered. They were crazy.
Yeah, with the heavy tank specifically. These were very good. There's been a couple of cases where these beat the door kicker Marines.
Yeah, no, these beat everything. They were absolutely insane. They were definitely a bit like unbalanced though compared to everything else. Like,
yeah, you can tell this game has a couple of Russian devs hanging around. You can tell. You can tell.
Yeah.
And America, that was these guys. Yep, these guys. Because they've got everything. They've got the 50 cal, they got the AGS, they got the toes. Really like those. I never really pushed any infantry as America, really ever, to any extent. I will say, while we're on the subject, Airborne loved to just fail. They love to just like not do anything. It seemed like they should be doing more than they are, and they just seemed like they just kind of didn't. There were a bunch of times when the Marine Raiders, they were CQC in the tree line. They got some kills. That was cool. There were some times where they were holding the road. Maz did the job. That was fine. They did they held, but they're still infantry at the end of the day. And then when it comes to reconnaissance, it'd be the same deal with the Army snipers in particular, where I think they had the more ammunition with their M107s. I think. Plus, just having the extra man was good, because these are 3 instead of 2, right? Yeah, these are 3. Not as stealthy as the scout snipers, but still pretty good. And then these guys, but I would
Cav Scouts. Yeah,
I would never actually use them. I just got them because they have this. that's the only thing that I would use. It's because they have this unique Bradley that you can upgrade. It's got APS, it's got a smoke, it's got a tow launcher, and it's got a bit better view range. That's the only reason why I used it. So
these were kind of like my starting unit, the Cav Scouts, and then the CFEs. Yeah. They were just nice to have. Just some Bradley Recon and some Cav Scouts.
Yeah. And then if you doubled up the Javelins, those would kill pretty much everything. But you don't have a lot of ammo. It's so annoying. It's just like the US, you have these cool things. There's like 3 shots. You might get one. You might kill one thing. If there's any APCs ahead of it, then, you're going to lose your ammo and then you're dead. You're doing nothing to everything. It's so annoying having that. But whatever.
Yeah, especially if they have active protection, the first 4 missiles are gonna miss.
Javelins should be able to get through. It would be smoke that would stop them, I think. I'm pretty sure Javs would get through APS because they're top attack.
Yeah.
At least most of the time.
What do you think of the nukes?
Nukes are interesting.
It's more like a fun thing to use, not really like
It really is.
Well, actually, if there's a big blob, sure. You really punish the blobs. They are interceptable. Well, the Russian one is. The American one, you just shoot down the plane.
Yeah. Where is it? There it is.
But they're really damn expensive, which is good. It's very expensive. But if you lose the plane, you're kind of fucked for like 5 minutes.
You really are. Well, Felix talked about this like day one.
Yeah.
The day that nukes were introduced, he publicly was like, it's going to cost. It's same thing with airdrops. Mm-hmm. If you're playing competent enemies, they're going to stop you. They will. Towards the end of the test, I was starting to see some more significant usage. What's the right word? More effective usage of nukes. And unfortunately, a lot of it was popping up at the beginning of the games, which That's
Yeah,
also
true.
annoying. But it's not like they are winning you the game in any stretch of the imagination. They're really not that effective. But I think that's what they wanted to have happen. I'm confident that's what they wanted. It's a cool thing that you can use, and if used correctly, devastating. But it's not gonna win you the game. So if you are voiding every other tactic in the book, I think it was the 142, was it? No, it wasn't. It was where is it? If you're voiding every other tactic so that you can drop a nuke, chances are it's not going to turn out in your favor. The only real thing I find annoying that I'm assuming is going to be changed at some point is the fact that Russia gets a cruise missile.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely will you'll get it off, and sometimes it gets lost in if you were doing other cruise missiles, you won't quite notice
Yeah.
whether that was a cruise missile or not. And then for the US, if you see a B1 going balls deep at your front line, it's also like a bit threatening whether or not, oh, is that dropping bombs or is that dropping a nuke? But at the same time, it's going balls deep past your front line in order to actually drop it. So you're gonna die if you're fighting a competent enemy. You're gonna die. So hopefully the United States gets access to a cruise missile, something it can fire from far away, and it can just lob it. And Russia gets access to a bomb, so that you can also be that dual threat if you wanted to as well. That's the only thing I think about on that side of things. But otherwise, it's the strategic bomber side of things. I was never actually worried about it. It's gonna get shot down. It's gonna get shot down. I think the thing that I'm most genuinely most like worried about is the stability of the game at release. I'm
Yeah,
worried
that's a big
about
thing.
the anti cheat. I'm worried about the amount of people that want to play, and what's going on with. Do you remember in the first test when they were doing airdrops, some vehicles were going invisible?
Yep.
Yeah,
Also infantry, I think.
plenty of room for bugs, plenty of room for issues, which is a major reason to test it. I don't know if this is going to be a similar case to a lot of major releases these days where it's just like first impressions are everything. I don't know if it's going to actually stick with this game because of how many people are counting on it and how many people are interested in it because of how unique it is. And, we've already had some tests. So if people aren't already hating it based off of like the no anti, although the no anti cheat thing has a simple answer. It has a simple answer. If they fully release the game and there's significant issues, I'm worried about like what that might actually stick with, what might actually like stick around with it. But based off of the amount of like following that those other games have with Warno and Wargame and stuff like that, I know that there will be people around. But then the people that are going to be left are the hardos, and then they're not worried too much about balance because they were worried about bringing people in. When if the people that were brought in are newbie enough that they get turned away because of whatever problems popped up, then what you're left with are the people that are going to be stretching the balance to its limits, in which case you didn't care about, so then it's going to be shit. So, yeah, I might have thought a little bit too much about this, but that's the thing. so you built the game for new players because you did. So if this ends up being the series of events, you built the game for new players, something pops up that makes the new players not want to play. All you're left with are hardos, but you decided to not focus on what the hardos would be doing, and it's bad from that perspective, and then it ends up being bad. And it's a ton of work to actually fix all this stuff. Meanwhile, the game is quote unquote released in your mind, and you're not very good at communicating as it stands because it's you were trying to do a release the other day on Patreon and they didn't say anything about it, so they're not very good at communicating. So we'll see what happens if that does end up being the case. But generally speaking, with the way that the game worked that last test, with how unique this game is, I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem. But it's just like doom and gloom. I could see that kind of situation happening.
Yeah, it's a big question whether they only like they didn't down what do you call it? They didn't downsize their or degrade their work that they spent on optimization of the servers and stability of it all. I don't know what they did. Like they just opened more capacity, they just opened more servers, whatever they did. I just hope we don't get that issue again in the first 3 days.
So with
Like small issues like balancing and some crashes, that's fine, But like if people just can't log in for like 4 hours straight, that'll be a big problem at launch, I think.
right, that is something that they could easily get DDoSed out of. So login
That is
servers.
true. Yeah.
So I'm assuming they'll get Cloudflare. I'm assuming there's something that they can do there. I'm assuming that there's ways around certain things. You're not going to be able to avoid the day one stuff. So if they can kind of like fake it, maybe they'll bring in all the Patreons a day early or something like that. So not everybody's trying to log in on the same moment and then all their servers go to shit. Something from my previous point that I was forgetting though, and I have to be fair, just to show everybody that I am being fair here, is something I forgot to add into my equation earlier is the mod support. So they're not going to lock anything. Everything is going to be fully public. I don't know if the right word is mod support at that point because they're not supporting anybody. They're just not stopping you. So I don't exactly know what the right verbiage is there.
So, I mean, there will be a scenario like editor, like we have seen
scenario
from
editor.
Felix showing us like the Unity thing.
Yeah.
Will it be a tool in the game? Will it be through like third-party tools? Will you have to just do it in, whatever other software and just try to import it? I don't really know, but from what Felix has told us, it'll be relatively easy for anyone just to make their own scenarios, like mission makers. And modifying unit stats shouldn't be that hard to do after just learning how the tools work.
Right, even past that, but just straight up mods, like full whatever the word is, full overhaul mods.
Like new models and
yeah, all that stuff. If nothing's unlocked, I mean, like we were saying earlier, Jack could literally just go in and be like, no, these units are worth this amount and they do this much damage and they go this speed and you can have this many of them, and that's literally a spreadsheet. You click, you change a couple of numbers. Once you actually know, it depends on if they're gonna have proper documentation and comments for all of these things. But if it's literally a spreadsheet with the name of the unit and you can easily track its statistics, which it seems like it should be, if a website like this exists already, it seems like it would be pretty easy to understand. Like, okay, this is the view distance, this is what it can shoot, these are the weapons that it have, this is the stats of that weapon. So if I wanted this to shoot a bit more, you turn that into a 6, you turn that from a 4 to a 6, and now it can shoot 6,200 meters. Like it seems in a spreadsheet somewhere. Like that should be good to go. I could see that happening. In which case, we see how long it takes before people are making Warno 2 and Star Wars and Halo and Warhammer 40K mods for all that stuff. That's gonna be crazy. If somebody, my dream mod was always like since I like day 2 of Wargame Red Dragon, or it could even have been like European Escalade or Airline Battle or whatever. Just like imagine like just a Warhound Titan just like stomping, and then you zoom in and you see a guardsman at its feet just like shooting up an orc or whatever, and then there's a Valkyrie flying by or something like that. It's 40K was meant to be on a game like this because it's scale. It's just you can see everything and do everything, which also loops back into your server issue before. A lot of this, the reason why they're not doing 10v10s is because the server that those 10 people are playing on when it's already a 5v5 can only do so much because of the scale. There's so much texture, there's so much calculation, there's so much synchronization that needs to be transported across the world so that when people actually shoot that AMRAM from, or when someone shoots that AMRAM off of their F-35, it actually knows that SU-27 is actually where it is and it actually hits it. There's so much stuff going on. It's not a more server thing. If everybody is matching forever, that is a more server thing. That's something that's a discussion that comes up constantly with Escape from Tarkov. So if you are waiting to get into a game, it's because too many people are playing and there's not enough servers for it. And if the servers can't actually sufficiently provide the experience that you need in that game, then that's an issue which is a problem for a lot of the Tarkov stuff. It's a very demanding game, so they can only have certain servers. With this end of things, it's going to be a cost thing, I would imagine, because you got to remember too, unless you've been spending $1 a month over on the Steel Ball like a Patreon, which again is only $1 a month, so you guys should go check that out. They haven't gotten a dime from any of us. Nobody has spent any money on any of this. All of their money is going to be coming from. I'm not wrong in that, right? We've never paid anything for this, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what the funding structure was. I don't know how that's going to set up, but I'm assuming they're prepared for having those servers, having the correct type of servers. But whether their netcode actually handles it correctly is another thing. So that's why I'm really hoping there's another test, and that's why I'm really, really hoping that, assuming they actually tell us this week, because they did verbatim say on the Patreon that they are going to reveal the U.S. Special Forces this week. So it depends on when we post this episode, but it could be very soon after this episode goes live. We'll see what's going on with that Special Forces deck, and I'm willing to bet they say something in there that is time sensitive. That's going to be my bet. That's going to be my my closer for today. I bet the reason why they waited a week to talk about that stuff is because there was something time sensitive that they talked about. So that's my glass half full. Glass half empty. Game's delayed again. But what do you think? You there?
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm wondering what the delay is about, but yeah, I think if they launch relatively smoothly, there's no big server issues, and it's on time. It's in June without like any major delay. Maybe like a week or two is fine, I guess. Then I think we're off to a good start already. I have a feeling they're just gonna release the Special Forces things next week. Maybe they just had a I don't know, really busy time, like you mentioned. Maybe there were some things that they didn't fully. I mean, it could be something as simple as they didn't have certain models in the game yet, or something. You know, they
Well,
have
that
only
would
placeholders.
not to get into a huge argument about it or
Yeah,
whatever. It's just, but like, dude, you gotta have that stuff days in advance. There's
yeah.
edits involved and stuff like
It
that.
might have been
But
some other things. Who knows? It's not like it is a vacation time, anyways. But
yeah,
yeah, I think if there's no major server issues at the beginning, no connectivity issues, it runs relatively smoothly, short matchmaking times and all that. I think it'll be just fine. But maybe a second or like a last short test phase, maybe like a closed beta. Just to test out certain units, because sometimes if you use a unit somewhere, it just crashes the game. Like we've had that many times. Maybe just a small scale test. I think just going full open scale would be good to test, server stress testing. But if they don't really change anything to their servers and network, we don't really need to test that again. But just testing the new units I think would be quite essential, because then only you know about some essential balancing. If a unit is completely OP in the beginning, that affects people's opinions quite a bit for some reason.
yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to see, I guess, what if they release anything next week, or just let us know at the very least what the delay is about.
Yeah. We'll see what's
That's
going on
what
with
I
that.
would hope for.
I think I want to try and do another thing next week too. Go ahead and copy that code that I just DM'd you and put it into B Armory there and see if it works. I don't know if it does yet or not.
Let me see.
He said he was still working on it. But at some point in the future, I want to do this thing where people send us their decks and we critique them.
Yeah, let me see here.
If that's working, we'll do it next week.
How do I put it in? Hanger?
That is a good point.
Let me see. Should be able to.
Should be Army Builder. Oh, good point.
Maybe I need to go to this one. Nope.
I don't want. So the thing is like there's links as well. I don't want people sending links.
Yeah. Arsenal? No.
The deck code I think is something so that's supposed to be added into the game.
Deck builder. New deck. Upload. No, load deck.
All right. Eventually, we'll have people send in their decks and we'll critique them. We'll give our advice and stuff like that. What you should and shouldn't change. But I think there should be a system to that as well, where they explain like what they want to use it for. Because there's so many like surgical decks to do a very specific thing. So if that person wants to do that specific thing, then that'll help us critique it basically. So, but that's gonna do it for today. At Bolt, as always, is a busy man, has a lot going on. We'll see where Infantry is at. And something that would be really good to add to that discussion is potentially, and more than likely, the strongest infantry deck in the game, which would be the United States Special Forces deck, which, again, hopefully we will be able to get our eyes on by the time we record our next episode here. Any closing thoughts here, Bolt?
Hey, let's hope June is when it's gonna happen, and let's hope it's smooth and just get blasting, I guess, when the game is out. That's all I'm hoping for right now.
Yeah. With vehicles, because vehicles are better than infantry. Okay, all right. Thank you guys very much for hanging out. That was the debrief. That's going to be on my channel if you want to check out episode 2. You can check out the playlist, and you can also check out Bolt's channel. We will be going back and forth, one episode on mine, one episode on Bolt's, one episode on mine, blah, blah, blah. If it's getting as much as it has been getting, potentially we give it its own channel, but for now, this is what we're going to be doing. So make sure you like everything up on the screen. Leave your advice, leave your comments below for the support for the YouTube algorithm gods. Really appreciate the support over here, guys. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for, again, hopefully that U.S. Special Forces deck. Thank you very much for hanging out. That was Debrief. Otherwise, hope you have a nice day. See you guys.